Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to Gettin' Savvy in Health, Wealth, and Beauty. Important to note that everything is for entertainment purposes only. Please do speak and meet with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And also, please meet and speak with your GP before making any health or beauty decisions.
Okay, Melissa. A lot going on in the market for sure. I would just want to say that the market's up about 2.5% right now. This is after the Jackson Hole meeting, where we had Fed Chair Jerome Powell speak, and he was more dovish, meaning that there are higher 90% probability that the Fed will in fact cut rates at the next meeting. And just to point out, so the markets now have this animal spirit once again, whereas the past 5 trading days they've all been down. The markets have been down because they felt that the Fed wouldn't was going to lean hawkish. Anyway, that's a big aspect in the market. We're also going to talk tariffs. I didn't even say hello, but anyway, I know we're both like, it's Friday and we've had busy weeks, but I think it's just an interesting, important point to mention, that we are seeing these markets really snap back to the upside. But what do you have going on?
Well, first of all, that's great to know because I knew that that was happening today, but I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to really look at the TV or the papers or anything. But it's funny because we've talked about how we manage our portfolios, obviously, in the past a lot. And I've told you that for me, I, just buy quarterly, no matter what, right? So it's sort of like a set it and forget it type thing. But I got a little nervous because my buy date was supposed to be Monday. But I was thinking, I don't know if it's a good idea to buy right now. I hear this news that, retail investors are still investing, but everybody else is pulling back and shorting the market. I didn't know what to do. And then I thought, no, I'm not
Interesting.
interrupting the plan. I'm not even going to think about it. My plan says I do it every 3 months, no matter what. So sure enough, I bought I always do a mix of index funds and then usually just pick a stock if I'm interested in it.
Wow.
And so that was on Monday. And then sure enough, I see on Tuesday and Wednesday, everything's down and down. But I didn't get emotional. I didn't get upset. I didn't panic. And look at that. There we go. It's up today. So it just goes to show you that
You're right.
no one can predict anything. And just if you have a plan, stick to it. That's the whole point of the plan.
Absolutely. And to
Yeah.
not be emotional. That's really key
Yes.
and critical as well. And just on that note, it was interesting. One of the big hedge funds in the United States, I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but years ago, one of the top hedge funds, I'm just grabbing a book here that I want to show you. Years
Mhm.
ago, one of the hedge funds actually gave, because most of them, most people that work there are men, right?
Mhm.
Period. Okay. At most hedge funds,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of women in finance and on Wall Street or Bay Street. That was true then. It's true now. And so at this one hedge fund, the senior guy had some of the junior people, one in particular, take estrogen to see how it would change their behavior, their emotional behavior when it came to trading stocks, because we're very different, obviously.
Did
So,
it make you more emotional? Or I would think that would think estrogen women tend to be more emotional.
well, not necessarily, because you don't got that testosterone fueling your, aggression and your hunger or your upset. I think it's a very
Hmm.
different type of emotion. It's a calmer emotion in some ways.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of men that would disagree. That would think that women are more emotional than men, and especially, well, I guess it might be more emotional at the times in the month when our
That's
estrogen's
right.
dropping. Okay. So you're right. Well, anyhow, I don't know where my
Well, right.
estrogen is.
That's a good point, Melissa, because we've talked about this a little bit in the past, right? Women get more testy,
Yep.
right, when they have their periods, right? Because you're losing your estrogen.
Yes. And progesterone. So your hormones are dropping. And that's when we tend to get irritable. Some women get teary. Some women get anxious. But yeah, we tend to get more emotional. And I find that when estrogen's rising, that's when women tend to feel best. Good energy, good mood, pleasant. And I mean, it makes sense evolutionarily because that's when we're most fertile. So we should be at our best because we want to attract a mate because we're fertile and we want to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Whereas before your period, it's a good signal, stay away from her, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So see, it
Anyhow,
might work in trading as well. Back to the point, you stuck with the plan. You didn't get emotional because you're right. The headlines, retail investors are pulling back. The smart money is out. The markets are too frothy. The steam was coming off
mm,
of AI over the past week. As I said, valuations were high. There was also a really interesting article by an MIT professor who had talked about the fact that these large enterprises that were using AI, it was only increasing productivity by 0.5%, and it
mm.
would only increase productivity by 1% over the coming 10 years. So in other words, why are all these companies, yes, yeah, getting so hyped up and excited about the increased productivity and therefore gross margin levels in the years to come if they implement AI? And so that took a lot of the steam out of some of the AI plays this past week. And as you know, it's those big tech companies that are market cap weighted. In other words, they have more influence in the Nasdaq than other companies, and so that's also what really brought it down were these MIT reports. But interestingly, Goldman Sachs actually did or interviewed one of these top MIT professors in the past, also talking about that. So it's not necessarily new news, and we'll still see how that plays out. But nonetheless, that
No,
was
I think we're
also one
just
of the
in the early
negatives.
days. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we're still just early days of using AI. So I'll give you an example, a personal example. Uh, so I actually just finally started paying for ChatGPT, the ChatGPT 5. Before I was using it free. And about a month ago, I finally said, you know what, I'm going to do the paid version. Uh, and I decided I was going to try to build my own website, an app with it. Okay. Because I
nice.
read that now AI can even help you. We talked about this, can build an app. So I have this idea that I'm not going to launch yet, but I have this idea that I think makes sense for, um, a website and app. And so I started with ChatGPT saying, this is what I want to build. This is what I want it to do. Where should I start? And it did an amazing job of helping me further focus down exactly what I want it to look like, how I want to navigate it, everything. And then it said, okay, you now need to set up a plan on these 4 sites. So I think it was like one called Vercel, one called Supabase, one called Stripe was for taking payments, and then I forget the other one, which I think was the most important one.
Oh
I don't know. I
wow.
have it on my
Hmm.
computer somewhere. So I did all that, and I said, "Do I need to pay or can I do the free?" They're like, "The free version's fine." So I did all of this, and then it started helping me build the code, and I literally would just copy and paste the code it gave me into the computer on the website, it told me, and then it would give me an error code, and then I would copy and paste the error code back into ChatGPT, and it would say, "Ah, I see the mistake. Try this." Then I would copy the
Wow.
new. I was basically acting like a coder, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna take away a lot of jobs." Okay, and I
Hmm.
think that's especially why Fiverr, the website that people often go to help them, get
Yeah.
job this done, marketing jobs, create this, create a um what do you call it? Like a
Well, we used it. We used it for our image.
trademark or like an image or whatever. So I do think it will take away a lot of jobs. That being said, I spent about 2 days immersed in this a couple weekends ago, like just getting obsessed with it. Was able to build the website so that it is functional, but I'm
Wow.
at the stage now where I'm just like, okay, but it doesn't really look good and I don't know what to do next. And I think I'm ready to hire somebody to finish the job. So what I'm saying is it hasn't replaced the jobs yet. It's just changed
Right.
the work, I think.
Right.
So,
It got
and
you going, and I think what's key and interesting and critical is that you were able to quickly execute on an idea as opposed to, so many people have great ideas, but they never do it. So it almost
yeah.
leapfrogs you to potentially having something that you want to develop.
Yeah. And then right away, because I'd been writing about this and talking about this and Googling about this, my phone heard me and I started getting sent lots of ads on Instagram for companies that help build websites and apps and everything. So now I have a conversation on Monday with a company to further explore this
That's
idea. So
amazing.
anyhow, Yeah.
We, what's interesting about that as well, Melissa, is that, it can only take you so I think we're still at the stage, and we will be for quite some
Agreed.
time, where it can only take you so far. And I think there's two reasons for that, which is interesting. One is that apparently 90%, if we step back and think about what AI is, it's basically the ability to scrape search engines for data.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because Google, which you remember I bought, at about 154 bucks, is at 204 now because nobody could decide if they're going to be able to have a great AI product, right? And well,
Yeah.
they have one, but will people switch to that versus Google using Google search? But Google, if you really think about it, has all of the data. We've been searching on Google for forever. People have Gmail accounts.
Yep.
There's so many. YouTube is part of Google. So there's a company, I've got it down here, but basically, like OpenAI is an example. So one of the AI companies, OpenAI, they scrape data off of Google, and there's a specific company that is used to do that. It's called SERP API, which is Search Engine Results Page. So it allows developers to collect data from Google and other search engines. My point in saying this is twofold. One is that, these AI companies need Google because of all the data.
Mhm.
But interestingly as well, I heard the other day that 90% of the data out there that we need to develop and to learn and to have the smarts is actually behind closed doors. In other words, a lot of the important information is in the research houses at universities and companies and pharmaceutical companies as well. Like, it's not actually out there. There's only, like, when you think about all the information that we can learn from and that we're trying to extrapolate from using an AI, there's not actually the best information or all the information out there. So that's, to me, is so interesting as well, because AI can only take you so far. When you think about, oh, I can AI anything and I'll get the smartest results. No, you can't. A lot of the best data, if it's not publicly available, it's not out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You can only, it's just, and books, it can just, that's true. It only can use the data and the information that it has access to. And if it doesn't have access to some of the information, then you're not
Yeah.
necessarily, yeah, just to reiterate what you said. Anyhow, I just felt in building this website, it was almost as if I was a regular person being told to do surgery on a patient, having never gone to medical school or done a surgical residency. It was almost like I was in a room and I went on to ChatGPT and was like, how do I take this appendix out? And it's like, well, first thing you want to do is wash your hands and put on clean gloves and put on surgical, like it takes you step by step. Then you want to get a scalpel. And then you write back, what kind? And it writes back, like this kind. And then you send it a picture. Is this it? And it says, yes. And you can have full on insane conversations with
Wow.
AI and by uploading pictures. Anyhow, it was wild, but obviously we're not totally there yet, but it's pretty crazy what it can do.
Yeah, and apps as well.
Mhm.
But just while we're all on the AI aspect, I
Yeah,
just want to bring you up to date as well on Nvidia, because you did buy it as well,
I did.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so that stock was under a little bit of pressure this week as well. Again, there's a concern with respect to the frothiness in the market, the valuations, the runs that we've seen in the stock market. But we've also heard there's reports that Nvidia has told their component suppliers, which would be like Amcor and Samsung and Foxconn, to stop producing related components to the H20 chip. That's amid China pushing back on this H20 chip because they're concerned about security. And they also have this broader goal of building their own chip manufacturing within China. So that put a damper on Nvidia and all these AI plays this week. And just go back a little bit further, recall that in mid-July, the White House said that Nvidia could resume selling the H20 chips to China. So that was a big positive. But then if you go back further, remember April, they weren't going to be allowed to sell the H20 chips, and that was going to be an $8 billion quarterly loss. I mean, that's on like I think 78 billion in revenue, but nonetheless, there's a lot of that back and forth right now with Nvidia. But as I said today, it's still off to the races on the back of U.S. Fed chairman being a little bit more hawkish. Sorry, dovish at Jackson Hole, and the reason again. You say it. Why is the Fed so important? Just like the Bank of Canada is for us.
Yeah.
They set the rates. They
But
set
the
the
interest
interest
rates, yeah.
rates. They set the
Mhm.
interest rates that everything is then pegged off of.
So they're
Um,
sort of indicating interest rates would fall in the
yeah,
US.
yeah. And we'll see what happens in Canada. And you might ask, why is it now? Why are they now dovish? Well, it's because if you recall, about a week or so ago, there were those massive downward revisions to the US jobs numbers. The
Mhm.
jobs have been overstated during the last months of the Biden administration. And so, in other words, the job market isn't as strong, and the Fed has the job to make sure that the job market is strong. So I think if anything, that's why they probably will be lowering rates.
And then I heard that however housing starts are up, which is kind of going against that because if housing starts are up, then that shows that the economy is doing well, and then maybe they won't reduce the rates. I don't know. But like I said, I tried to put all these things together in my head, and then I just decided I don't know. No one knows, and I'll just stick with my
Yeah.
plan.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, and let me just segue to one aspect on that, which I think is really important in terms of sticking to the plan, and almost I think sticking to the fundamentals. You didn't talk so much about that, but that's kind of I think where I always come in on the fundamentals. And I've bought a lot of Wall Street books over the years, and I think because I've been so immersed in Wall Street, you don't sit back and read a Wall Street book because you're in it, right?
Mhm.
But there is one, and this is Peter Lynch. So Peter Lynch, it's called One Up on Wall Street, and he is famous for how we are talking about investing, which is if you know a product or you use a product, you probably have a little bit more of an edge, right? And you know, hey, could this be an interesting investment? And that's their starting point. And that's really what he has been about. That's what he's known for. At, but this book was written in 1989, and then it was updated in I think 2000. And it's really interesting because I'm just at the very beginning. He's talking about the dot-com era, and he's talking about not buying into these companies that might have a very high return, but the risk is also high because we don't even know if they're going to exist. So do I want to pay for a stock price that it's going to take 10 years to get to the earnings? So he's all about looking at the company's earnings and are they somewhat disruptive, like the railroad or the telephone, the car, the airplane, and the TV. I mean, that's going back obviously a ways, but how much do you want to pay for a company? And the reason why I bring that up is because in this pullback that we've seen over the past 5 days, Melissa, one of the stocks I haven't bought but I wish I owned is Palantir. And so
Well,
that
isn't now a good
stock's,
time then? Because it's been hit so hard lately?
well, yes and
Yeah,
no.
majorly.
The PE on it is if my numbers are correct, is 535 times.
Ooh.
So, and also, I always look at the 52-week high low, which doesn't mean anything, but it gives me an idea in terms of the range of the stock. The stock over the past 52 weeks, this is Palantir, which is, I think, the top performing stock period this year. But the range was $29 up to 190. That's a
Ooh.
massive range. And it's trading at 160 right now. And the PE multiple is 535 times. So I just, it struck me when I'm reading this book, and as I go along, I'll take some notes on it. Some of the chapters you'd be interested in, though. One is this gambling or what? And then also the making of a stock picker. So earnings,
And that
earnings,
was
earnings.
1989. That was 1989, and they're talking about is that gambling or what? Okay. Fast forward to now everybody being able to be a do-it-yourself investor, having a gamified app on your phone. Okay. I just read something like Robinhood is now maybe taking NFL sports bets. Like, what? Is that
Mm,
true?
I
Look
don't
that
know.
there's no
I'll look
more
it up.
mixing of investing and gambling if that's true.
No, no, but I'm gonna
Or are they
read.
just putting with
I'm gonna
NFL?
read.
Maybe I misread that, but check that.
I'm gonna
Robert,
read what what his definition of it was in 1989, and it probably hasn't changed. Just like buying good companies that have good earnings prospects, that's still I think, a great way to invest, and that's what we've been doing here, I think, and it's hopefully been working.
Yeah.
Okay, what's on your
Oh,
docket?
wait. Okay. This was the
Oh,
thing. Robinhood app now comes with NFL college football predictions. Now, Robinhood debuts NFL and college football prediction markets. Sorry, that's gambling. Okay.
but
Anyhow, but I love Robinhood. I think that's a great buy. I have no idea what the PE ratio is or what the 52-week high or low is or what, but I just think that's a great business. Segueing in, I guess, a little bit. If you say, Peter Lynch, invest in what you know, you have a leg up on, you have some intel or whatever. A market that I know well is the weight loss market, very well.
yeah,
And like I've said to you before, like Ozempic is flying off the shelves. It's still, for me, my number one most prescribed weight loss drug, even though it's off label for weight loss. It's actually the diabetes medication, whereas the weight loss version of that medication is Wegovy. But nonetheless, I still prescribe a lot of Ozempic. So that would be an area that I knew a lot about. Novo Nordisk makes Ozempic, and yet you can't just translate a good product to a good company
right,
because Novo Nordisk.
1000%.
Yeah. So you have to then continue to do your homework on the stock. But anyhow, there was some interesting data on Ozempic in the medical news this week. So it's the first drug in Canada approved to protect both kidneys and heart in people with diabetes. So there was a major international trial done called the FLOW trial. It followed more than 3,500 patients across 28 countries over 3.5 years. And what it found was the patients on Ozempic were 24% less likely to face kidney failure, dialysis, or cardiovascular death than those on placebo.
But
Okay.
why? So because this is a diabetes trial, like these are people with
Correct.
diabetes, and so does that mean they're overweight?
So the benefits were not fully explained by the differences in sugar control or weight or blood pressure. So no. So what it's suggesting is that semaglutide, okay, which is Ozempic, may have direct anti-inflammatory, antioxidative, and renal hemodynamic effects that contribute to the benefit. So, okay, so let's just break that down. What does this all mean? So type 2 diabetes, one thing that's often a cause of mortality in diabetics is they get kidney disease, okay, because they have a problem with blood flow. So if you think about your blood as being watery, if you're diabetic and it's full of sugar, think about it as being syrupy. And that's not very good for blood flow. And that's not very good for your end organs that blood is feeding, one of them being the kidneys. Okay. Another one being the heart, another one being the eyes. That's why diabetics tend to get complications that we call retinopathy when it affects the eyes and nephropathy when it affects the kidneys. So it's a major issue. So even if a patient with diabetes doesn't have kidney disease yet, we put them on kidney protective medications prophylactically. Okay. And what this is also now saying is that if you have a diabetic patient, type 2 diabetes I'm talking about, irrespective of whether they're overweight, who cares what their weight is, the recommendation is now going to be that putting them on Ozempic is going to be beneficial to protect their heart and to protect their kidneys.
Mm.
So, and I looked up, so then you wonder, well, what dose were these patients on? Okay. So the dose that's indicated for obesity with Ozempic is 2.4 milligrams. That's the highest dose of Wegovy. Okay.
Okay.
When we talk about people microdosing Ozempic, like you hear that in the news, what does that mean? That means people taking much smaller doses, typically 0.25 or 0.5 weekly, just to get a little bit of weight loss benefit and maintain that benefit. In this trial, so the dose for diabetes, they took 1 milligram every week. Okay. So
Okay.
this is also important to understand that even if a patient was type 2, now you're going to get more overweight type 2 diabetics, but if a patient wasn't overweight, technically by definition, they were still given 1 milligram of Ozempic weekly.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. And what it showed is that it had beneficial effects, so much so that they stopped the trial early because it wasn't fair to deprive the other half of the participants of not being on Ozempic. So sometimes when a drug is working so well and the trial's going on and it's showing that there's such a benefit of being on the drug versus the placebo, they stop the trial and say it's not ethical anymore to deprive these patients of this drug, which we see as beneficial.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just wow. Like I say it again. It's been a long time that I've seen a drug that has really just been such a game changer for so many different things.
But there are still people who are real disbelievers and thinking that it's too early to tell what it does for the non-diabetic patients and what these side effects are. There are side effects to everything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, so I'm of the belief that if you're not, if your health's not at risk via your weight, if you're not, you know, overweight, then you shouldn't just willy nilly go and take this. But there's a lot of people who feel like all these benefits keep coming out, and there's all this stuff about perimenopause it being helpful and menopause and all these things helping with, cognitive health and brain health. So you don't want to miss the benefit by waiting too long. So what do you want to wait 30 years and then, oh, well, you missed it? So
Remind Yeah. Remind me the benefit for menopause.
well, they're saying it helps with a lot of women gain weight in menopause and they have hormonal imbalance and
Mhm.
they get brain fog, they get weight gain, they can get higher risk for heart disease after menopause. And so what they're finding is that a lot of women in that, especially in the perimenopause to menopause transition, when all of a sudden they come in and they say, I'm not doing anything different. I'm eating the same diet, I'm exercising the same, but I'm gaining weight around my midsection. And the midsection is where you're higher risk for things like fatty liver disease and heart disease and it being endocrine disruptive. They're showing that going on Ozempic
Mhm.
can benefit that and can help them combat that extra weight gain that happens at the time. The question is, for the patients that aren't overweight, is there still a benefit of them going on it? We just don't know the answer yet. But in this trial, again, it showed that the benefit was independent of
Mhm.
the change of their weight.
Mhm.
Okay, and they're saying it has this anti-inflammatory, antioxidative, and increased blood flow effects. Well, that's a good thing in everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So we'll see. I mean, I
Yeah.
like I, again, it also depends on even never mind like the long term. We don't know long term risks. That's true. But also, you have to weigh that against the side effects it's causing. So if you're someone that takes it, I mean, I think it says 1 in 8 Americans have tried a GLP-1 drug, but not 1 in 8 Americans are still on a GLP drug. So a lot of them stop because of price, but also because of side effects that they just don't like. If you feel
Yeah.
burn, food doesn't taste the same, you're constipated or abdominal pain or diarrhea, whatever, then a lot of people are just like, oh, I just don't like the way I feel, or they have no energy.
And Melissa, there was news though this week in Canada that they're lowering the price of Ozempic.
I thought it was just in the US.
Was that US?
Yeah. So the news I saw is that Novo Nordisk agreed in patients in the US that don't have coverage, the people that are paying out of pocket, not via
Oh,
insurance plan, they're reducing the price by 50%, which sounds
okay.
amazing, but that reduces it from $1,200 to $600, which is still way more than you pay here in Canada.
Yeah. It's a
Prices in
lot.
the US are way higher than the prices in Canada. Yeah. But I still don't understand it because you can still get it at a lot of these places, the non, Ozempic brand. You can get compounded GLP-1 still, even though they're supposed to not be legal and you're not allowed to do it because there's no shortage. If you just change the dosing or you add something to it, they seem to be able to just order it online and get it shipped to you. So
Speaking of Canada for a second, and on the trade front, so Trump and Carney apparently have spoken, but that's the first time. So yesterday, the first time since June 30th. And as you know, here in Canada, we still have no budget, but we know that Carney's increasing spending. We have no major projects being built here in Canada, no trade deal. Remember that Trump increased the tariffs on Canada from 25% up to 35% on the back of the failure to stop fentanyl. That was one of the key reasons. And speaking of fentanyl, just to segue for a second, Melissa, I was taking my husband to get his colonoscopy yesterday, and we're
Mhm.
sitting in there. I went into the room with him as they're getting him prepped and, well, not prepped, but like the IV.
Yeah.
And so so I'm like, Les, of course, is like, oh, yeah, whatever, puts his arm out. I'm like, what's in that? Right. Because, and if I go into you, I'm getting an IV of vitamin B or
Mhm.
NAD. And so I'm like, well, what's in that? And they said, "Oh, it's 2 things. One to make him relaxed, and the other thing to make him forget." And then they named one thing that I don't know, and then the other one was fentanyl. They did Is this surprising to you?
No. That's why I don't know if you remember, this thing came out the dr anesthesiologists have the highest rates of fentanyl addiction of all the doctors, I think, or among the highest rates. Why? Because they
Okay.
have access to it, because they use fentanyl so much when they put patients to sleep. It's part of the anesthetic. People don't realize this also. When you're getting a C-section and you're or sorry, when you're a C or a when you're just giving birth and you get the epidural, it also has fentanyl in it.
Oh, I was just shocked. Like, when you
Yeah.
wanna know if you I would wanna just given everything, as a non-medical person, if
Mhm.
I was given fentanyl, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
But it's probably so commonplace in the medical world.
And they give you propofol, that's what makes you fall asleep. I actually didn't know. I actually don't know I think a lot of them have their different regimens. I actually wasn't sure what was in. Um, no, I've never asked, and it's funny, like, as a doctor, as a patient,
Yeah.
whenever I've had to get a procedure, like, they just put you to sleep for a short period of time, which is
Yeah.
like a colonoscopy. So maybe he had conscious was he fully put to sleep? Was he given
No.
Oh, that's the
No.
difference. They don't you where did he go?
Hamilton.
Oh, okay, well.
Well, it's okay. I've
I
been very supportive of the Hamilton hospitals.
How did he
I
feel
know.
after? Was he
He
feeling
he loves it.
better?
He has no problem. He was dopey, but the funny thing is he thinks he was going to be able to drive,
No,
and
you're not allowed.
no, I know. I kept saying to him that's not happening. And so I had them repeat it to him, and they said it's like being under the influence
Yeah.
for 24 hours.
So, years ago, when I was undergoing, like, IVF in that part of my life, uh,
Yeah.
they put you to sleep when they do the egg retrieval,
Yeah.
and remember so this was years ago, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, um, the first place I went to, it was conscious sedation, so they gave me something to forget, they gave me something to take the pain away, and I believe it was that type of cocktail. But I felt very nauseous afterwards, like, I felt like I was
Hmm.
gonna throw up after I didn't feel well. Then years later, a couple years later, when I did it again in New York, um, I didn't get that, I got just put to sleep using something called propofol, which is an anesthetic that just puts you to sleep, but then you reverse it, and I felt perfect after. I guess you just have to ask the anesthesiologist what they're using.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm standing up. I'm like, what's going in them? They're like fentanyl. I'm like, fentanyl? What
Yeah.
the
What
what the
kind of
heck?
things?
Don't you know that's why we're in this problematic trade issue?
I don't
Yeah.
believe at all that that's the real reason.
It's one of the reasons for sure. Absolutely. And we don't have secure borders. But just to go on that for 1 second, because it's important in terms of no trade deal. They did speak yesterday, haven't since June the 30th. So that's a bit of an issue, clearly, because they are making headway with Europe.
Mhm.
That is the United States and their trade deals. But importantly, when you think about the markets, Melissa, when you have people buying markets, right? There's a tailwind to prices in the market. The market's going to go up when more people are wanting to buy than sell, and the opposite is true as well. Canada has had a major capital drain from foreign investors year to date to the tune of over $83 billion. So when you and I talk about buying these stocks and hoping they're going to go up, yes, you hope they always go up on fundamentals, but there's also the momentum of money. And with the lack of that, let alone the downward pressure on money exiting Canada in the equity market, let alone other areas in industries, it has it downward pressure on it. And you're seeing actually more Canadians buy US equities and you're seeing foreign investors buy US equities. So
Yeah.
it's a real problem. Not only if you own stocks in Canada or you don't own stocks, but you get a pension and the pension fund owns Canadian stocks, they're not going to go anywhere. That means there's less return. And and when your markets are less attractive, it really inhibits the ability of governments to continue to fund all these public services that we want, like hospitals, like education. So you really always need a very strong capital uh, capital markets, which when you see $83 billion leave in the first 2 quarters of the year, it's not a good thing. We need a trade deal. We need to get back to business. We need a business here.
Just before we exit, because I
Yeah.
have to go in 5 minutes, there was one thing. Now, this is totally pivoting to a different world entirely, but do you drink matcha?
No.
Neither do I, but it's a huge trend, especially with the younger generations and millennials and, especially in the wellness field. So many people are drinking matcha, matcha, matcha. So I saw this interesting study that it can actually affect your iron absorption. So it all came about as some women started noticing that they were iron deficient and they couldn't figure out why because they were even taking like an iron supplement and their iron level wasn't going up. And it came out that they were drinking a few matchas a day. So apparently, matcha is this. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's that super
Yeah.
green, yeah,
Yeah.
very
It's nice
very
and
bright
creamy.
green.
Yeah.
Yes, make it with you can make it with like a latte, like with matcha. So what happens is that matcha is very high in tannins, which I found was interesting. Now tannins you've probably heard of because we think of that in red wine. Red wine's also high in tannins, and it's actually the reason that some people find they get a bit of a headache from it. So I don't know if people have reported that with drinking matcha, but anyhow, those tannins uh, inhibit iron absorption in the gut, especially non-heme iron. So if you drink a morning matcha when you take your iron supplement or have some iron fortified food, then you're not going to absorb it. So what the recommendation was is watch the amount of matcha you're having, first of all, so
Hmm.
that it's not more than one a day, and have it either an hour before or an hour after another meal. And definitely don't take an iron supplement within an hour of having matcha. So I just thought it was interesting. Well, why would somebody even drink this? Like,
Yeah.
so this I also found. So obviously the bright green color is because it's so rich in chlorophyll. Think about from plants. And that
Yeah.
chlorophyll signifies very high antioxidant and polyphenol content. So that's very healthy for you. It also has caffeine, like coffee, but it's also rich in an amino acid called L-theanine, which is a
Yeah.
calming amino acid. So some people that can't drink coffee because it makes them jittery or feel too stimulated with
Oh.
caffeine switch to matcha because they feel better with it. So I don't know, I had never drank it before because I just like my morning coffee and it doesn't make me uh, too jittery or anything like that. But I may start to have the occasional matcha for the health benefits.
Hmm.
And, just pay attention. I don't happen to be iron deficient, but a lot of women are, especially women that are still menstruating or get heavy menstrual periods or that
Hmm.
don't eat a lot of red meat or meat in general. And if you are iron deficient, and if you
Mhm.
are going to take an iron supplement, then you want to take it with vitamin C to enhance the absorption. And if it's still not doing the trick, a lot of places are popping up now that you can get an IV iron infusion. So this is
Hmm.
something that I'm hoping to start at Wellness House soon because a lot of people don't like taking oral iron because it makes them constipated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a nice solution.
Huh.
And if you're low in iron, you may not realize it, but that could be the reason that you're kind of not feeling good energy, a bit sluggish, not getting the best workout. So, yeah.
Yeah. I take little chlorophyll pills
Oh, okay.
every day. First thing
Yes.
I do in the morning. Little
Oh,
pellets.
interesting. Okay.
I'll bring them. I bought them in Aspen.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that
You're
yoga
so good
place
with
that
all
we
your
went.
supplements. I take nothing. Although I'm going to start to take, what I am going to start to take, I finally changed my tune on collagen. I'm going to start taking collagen peptides again in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love all of it. I got my chia seeds.
Yeah, that's a song. I like chia seeds too. They're super
Yeah.
healthy, high in fiber, omega-3. They keep you full. I like my chia
Yeah.
seeds.
It's
Yeah.
great. Okay. We both have to run because it's 2 o'clock and you've got a call and I got a
I,
call. Okay. All right.
okay.
See you I want this next time I want to do Lululemon. I want to go
Yes. Uh,
because it's trading at like 13 times. It's cheap. Is it
Yeah.
worth it is the question. Okay. And I saw huge lineups going to the store at the outlet mall. That's always a good sign.
And look at every single girl under the age, every single girl that's from age 10 to 18. And look at how many Lululemon items they have. And my Lululemon bike shorts I bought are still my favorite. And I'm wearing a Lululemon sports bra right now because I just did Pilates.
Okay.
Okay.
Lululemon next time. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.